my writing comes from like places of anger.
Okay.
Yeah, no, because it's like the things that like really get at your soul, like you want to change them, right? And I really feel like the best art that we put out in the world is like what our soul wants and what our soul needs and what needs to be seen, you know, because that will somehow touch other souls.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Film Goals Podcast. Today I'm with the one and only Giovannie Espiritu.
Yep.
And we're here at Spacecraft today. And if you're here drumming, it's because they're practicing upstairs. So hopefully it's not too bad. But yeah, thank you for coming to the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So you are a filmmaker,
Yep.
actress,
Yep.
Multifaceted. I don't know how you would describe yourself.
Like-
Tell me exactly like what you do, what your focus is, and then like how you got started.
Okay, so gig worker, right? Like I have to do all the things because this is what we do as artists. Filmmaker, actor, producer, acting coach. Yeah, I do all the things. I started in, we're gonna get a little bit into the cult history. So I started in voiceover. And the reason why I started in voiceover was because I was up in the mountains living in isolation because we were waiting for Jesus to come, right?
Okay.
And the person that I was married to at the time had quit his job, and I had a baby.
Okay.
And I was like, what was I going to do with my baby? Like, we need to feed the baby. And I used to stay on the phone with telemarketers all the time. And one of the telemarketers was like, you have a very interesting voice. You should get into voiceovers. And I was like, I don't even know what voiceovers is. Right?
Yeah.
So I looked it up, and the thing on the very baby internet that you still had to dial into, there was an agency called Stars that was the very first one that popped up that was closest to the area that I lived in, and it was still 4 hours away because we lived in like a remote part of California.
Okay.
And so I sent in a very, very stupid tape. Not even a tape, it was like a recording, whatever, one of those CD things. And they called me in, and they signed me, and they sent me on my first audition for a video game, and I booked it.
Oh, nice.
And it was more money than I had ever made.
Okay.
It was more money. Yeah, it was just like, and I was like, oh my God, it's a sign from God, right? Because I was still in that, cult mentality.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I got started in the whole acting industry. I think that was in 2001. Long story short, I left the cult. I left that relationship, and I took my kid, and I was living in San Francisco, and my agency was like, you need to get into acting because you're booking all this voiceover stuff, but they basically want to sell you as many places as they can sell you.
Yeah.
They're going to try to sell you so that they can make the money, because agencies only make a commission off of whatever you as an actor make. So I was like, okay, I'll take some acting classes. I started taking acting classes in San Francisco, and after 8 months, I got signed with a Los Angeles agent. And I used to commute back and forth for the auditions. My first role as a union member was on ER.
Okay.
It was a recurring role as med student Ludlow, and that's how I got my start in the industry. Because I could not move down to LA because of a lot of custody stuff, I stayed in the Bay Area. And until 2016, I was in the Bay Area acting, right? And occasionally doing, TV shows in LA. But, that's hard. That's hard to doing that commute and stuff like that. So, and also in the Bay Area, it was hard to make a living because it's the Bay Area, right? A lot of tech companies pushing all the prices up, all that stuff. And then in 2016, I moved to LA, and I found out the business in LA was so different than the Bay Area. Like Bay Area, you can go to your auditions and you'd watch each other's kids, right? LA is like, right?
Yeah.
Like the competition is like unreal, and people are like stepping on each other, and it was just super toxic. And I was like, I don't even know if I want to be in this industry.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I was getting so frustrated with the lack of roles for Asian American women, right? Well, Asian women in general, because so many roles go to men, and then like women like get the secondary roles, and then if you are a woman of color, it's even harder, right? So I was just getting super frustrated. I was doing all these production jobs, and then I started writing my own stuff. So I got into the Producers Guild because I would do a lot of the grunt work.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was associate producer on a couple of series, and then just like a couple of, independent feature films that got distribution. Did the grunt work. So much grunt work. So that's how I got into the Producers Guild. That's fairly new, and I always feel like when people see that on my resume, they're like, oh, you must know your stuff, or you're like, right?
Yeah.
I don't. I honestly, I feel very new to it, and everybody that's in the guild, I look up to, and I'm just there to learn right now, right? And then the directing stuff, like I started out with like I was telling you earlier, just me and the camera.
Yeah.
That was my first film because that's all the money I had, right? And then my second film, that one stuff, and I was like, cool, I'm doing something good.
Yeah.
And then my second film, Ally 3000, I just asked a couple of friends to help me with that, edit it, and used one camera. It was a short, and it ended up winning stuff. And then my third film was a documentary that I told you about. It was just me again, just putting pieces together, and that ended up winning the Telly.
Wow, that's a good summary.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot.
I'm gonna go back like 10 steps.
Okay, let's do it.
Do you remember what video game you got your first role for?
It was called My Street.
Okay.
And it was like one of those that you're like, oh my God, why did they hire me? I do not know what I'm doing. I played an Australian little boy. I don't know how to do an Australian accent. I still cannot do an Australian accent.
Did you try to do the accent, or
I
just
did.
Oh,
I
really?
so did. And I think the reason why I got it was because it was so last minute and they needed a last minute replacement. And I was
They're like good enough.
yeah, I was like, fine. Like, hey, can't even do a freaking accent.
Oh my God.
But it was like an Australian little boy, and I think I listened to like one catchphrase, and that's what I would return to. But more money than I had ever made, you know? So I was like, sign from God.
And why didn't, I'm guessing it was the agency, but why didn't you decide to stay in the video game industry if it was
I did.
Oh, you did?
Like I did for a while. Like
Okay.
that's how I started, that's how I was making money.
Right.
Like that's why, like, my ex allowed me to go to San Francisco and drove me there and allowed me to go to auditions and do acting class because I was the only one that was bringing in money
Right. Okay.
for video games.
That's so interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
And then let's talk about like your transition. Was the transition to your writing and directing because
I had to?
you couldn't? Yeah, because you had to, or
Yeah, because I was getting mad. I was getting mad at that there was no roles for Asian, like, I mean, it's gotten better since Crazy Rich Asians, honestly. Like, but like, you know.
And this was in LA, right?
Yeah, this was
Or-
in LA.
okay.
So I'd get occasional roles, like Med Student Ludlow, but it wasn't ever the, the main character type of thing. So I was just getting frustrated. And so writing came out of like, oh, shoot, casting can only cast for the roles that are made. And then, the writers, if the writers don't write the roles, then they're not going to be there for anybody. Like writers literally have to add, their ethnicities. And even in crowd scenes, writers should write crowd scenes of which 50% are women, because the Gina Davis Institute of Gender and Media Studies was like, if you don't write that in, they will cast 70% men in crowd scenes. So it's like, like the fact is that there's not enough roles. So
Okay. And then how did your transition into doing your own stuff? Like how is that going? And like what's some of the projects that you worked on?
So some of the projects that I've worked on as a producer, some of my own projects.
Okay. Both. Let's talk about
okay,
both. Yeah.
so there is a series in the Bay Area called Dyke Central, which is very LGBTQIA based, that I'm very proud of because, we kind of put that together for less than $100,000 for 10, 22-minute episodes, and it's on Amazon Prime.
Okay.
And it was very like sweat and tears, right? And the showrunner of that. She's amazing. She's like a mom, and she did the pilot, and then she shopped it to all the networks, and the network's like, we want to change it because your leads aren't fuckable.
Oh my God.
Right? And she was like, no, because they weren't for the male gaze, it was for the queer community.
Right.
And so she was like, no, I want to cast the way that I want to cast it, and I want people to look like this because this is real people. These are real people in the community. And so she had to self-fund it and do it on her own. So I did associate producing on that. And I still get fan mail from that. And it's not fan mail like, oh my God, you're so great. It was like, this was the first Filipina genderqueer representation, and we don't have that in very conservative Middle Eastern countries, I get, like this character made me feel seen. And that's why I do this stuff. This is why I'm an actor. This is why I still feel, even though this industry is so toxic, that I feel it's so important to be like a filmmaker and to be a storyteller, because if we don't see it, if we don't see what the possibility of the world can be, it's hard for us to like imagine it. And it's hard for us to like change the society if we don't put those stories out into the world.
So it was all Filipinos? Is that what that?
No. So Dyke Central was a lot of people of color in the Oakland Bay area. So that was like associate producing. So that's not my own stuff. My own stuff started in 2019, and with that, like just me and the camera. Just me and the camera. So it was just me like. I just did a poem. I did a poem called Ultra Feminist because I was mad. A lot of like my writing comes from like places of anger.
Okay.
No, because it's like the things that like really get at your soul, like you want to change them, right? And I really feel like the best art that we put out in the world is like what our soul wants and what our soul needs and what needs to be seen, because that will somehow touch other souls.
Right. Yeah. So tell me about the documentary that won the Telly.
It was kind of the same thing as my first thing. It was basically a poem that was to camera.
Oh, okay.
And I guess people like what I have to say.
And how is that documentary?
So it was about my family.
Oh, so you went in that like deeper?
Little bit.
Okay.
Like you can't really go super in depth in 1 minute.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it did. Kind of like it affected people, I guess, in ways that it won the Hyundai Evolve Innovation Award.
Okay.
It won the Telly. It won something else. And
you did that by yourself, or did you
I did
end
it by
up
myself.
getting crew, or no? Oh, it was just
No,
you shooting
it was
yourself?
just me.
Interesting, okay. And have you put that out? Is it online on YouTube or anything?
Yeah,
Okay.
I can send it to you.
Okay, for sure.
Yeah. You're going to be like, what the fuck? Sorry. You know what I mean?
No, you're good in cuts.
I'm okay. Yeah. Because like a lot of my stuff is so like just, that's all I had. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you work with what you have.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't got money. I'm a single mom.
No, that's cool to like, you're a single mom and you're doing that stuff.
Yeah.
Would you ever like do a documentary about your past stuff?
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
So I'm working on that right now. In addition, so last year I did my first feature film. This year I'm doing a 6-episode series, web series, whatever you want to call it. But I'm also working on the personal documentary called Motherland, which is me kind of going back into the Philippines to try to figure out where these patterns started in my family, because I was in a cult, okay? I was. And I was also in relationships that were very violent. And I needed to think about, like, where did these patterns start?
Okay.
So that is kind of like, so it's called Into the Motherland, and I'm working on that as a documentary.
Okay. And would you go deep into the cult stuff or no? Is that cult
that
still
is-
around?
Yeah, it's still around.
Oh, man, that's so interesting.
For part of the documentary, so this is what I did like a couple of weeks ago. Part of the documentary is me going back to the Philippines because I haven't seen my mom and my grandma in like 8 or 9 years. So I did that last year. So I have that part of the doc.
Mm-hmm.
But like a month ago, so a lot of the stuff that happened within the cult happened in a small town in Yosemite where I worked for the Brethren, right? And I went back there for the first time in 20 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Just to see, and just to like kind of record the journey.
How'd it feel? Were you all
It
creeped
was,
out?
yeah, like I brought my partner with me, and so it's a town called Oakhurst, and it was actually where a lot of the stuff happened. It was 40 minutes up the mountain from Oakhurst. And so once we got into Oakhurst, there was just something about the smell in the air that just went, and I was like, oh shoot, I was thinking that I could go up there, up the mountain. I cannot.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm just going to stay in the gateway town called Oakhurst and just let all the feelings wash throughout me. And I have pictures where I'm like a teenager standing in front of these mountains in like clothes that look like I'm a Mennonite. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, and like being there as me now was just kind of like surreal, and be like, you know what? I got through a lot of shit. So yeah, that's part of the doc.
Okay, wow. No, that's really interesting for sure.
Yeah. And it was very interesting because we went to go eat somewhere, and I just off chance asked the waiter. I was like, "Hey, what do you know about blah, blah, blah," right? Did not say anything about the cult. Did not say anything about the cult. And he was like, "Oh yeah, there's a cult up there." And we were like, "What?" So evidently, there's like a temple up there. I don't know if it's the same cult, but evidently they say that the men and the women are separated, and they only come together once a year. And the guy that runs the cult goes down the mountain to get water from the river. And I was like,
wow.
I didn't even ask about any of this stuff, but they just like volunteered that information. And I was like, okay, maybe it's the same cult, maybe it's not, but that's really weird.
And is that similar to when you were in it, or is that?
Gosh.
Or were you in it like when you were really young?
No, I was in it. I was a teenager, so I remember a lot of the stuff, but
right.
they were very into like last day stuff. They were very into like the health message. So I could see like the going down to the river and getting the water because it was pure. I don't know. Segregation of men and women. I could see that. And maybe because it's been 20 years. So maybe it evolved into that. When I was in it, we were, the men and the women still were able to talk to each other. So,
Damn, that's
like,
that's interesting, dude. That's
I
crazy.
don't know.
And
It's crazy.
like cult documentaries are really popular. Like they're all over
I know.
Netflix.
This is why I think I should do it because, one, it's like I'm trying to put the shame back on other people. You know what I mean? Like, if that makes any sense.
No, I got
like,
you. Yeah.
and it is healing in a way. And what's that quote where it's like, your story might be somebody else's survival guide?
Oh, okay.
So, like, and the weird thing is I want to make it funny. I don't know if I can make it funny. We'll try to make it funny. That's going to happen in the editing, maybe. But yeah, like, I don't know how it's going to turn out. Because you know how, like each project is like a living thing?
Yeah.
And, like, it evolves. Like, you script it one way, you film it another way, and then in the edit, it becomes something totally different. Yeah, so we'll see where this goes. I have the pieces of how I want it to be, or, like, the story, but it might go somewhere else entirely.
That's so interesting. All right, so let's talk about like the stuff that you're working on now. Like, I just saw that you were in a magazine.
Yeah.
As there's a big picture of you or whatever.
I know.
So tell me what that was, and like, congrats on that.
Thank you. So I'm one of the 2024 Women Inspiring Nevada honorees for Las Vegas Weekly. So a couple weeks ago, I was in the magazine. I don't know what to do with it. Like, it's really cool.
You should have brought it.
I might have one in the car, but I'm not going to blow them out. Like, that's no. Like, you could put it. I'll send you a JPEG, and you could like put it in the video and be like, "This is here. Look at this, whatever." But yeah, one of the senators was there, and like the women were really amazing. But I don't know how I ended up. I always end up in these spaces where I'm just like, why? Like, why am I here? Okay, I'm here. What do I do with this? Okay, I'm gonna learn.
And it was from every kind of like career path, and every kind of
Yeah.
And do you want to talk about how you even got it?
My kid nominated me.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure my kid was like, my mom is a single mom, and she, because my kid's amazing, and they're a scholar, and I feel like I won the kid lottery, because they're amazing, but they probably was like, my mom went through a lot of stuff, and I'm here, and I'm going to college, and it's whatever. Yeah, so.
Okay, no, that's awesome, dude.
So
so let's talk about the series that we're working on that,
Okay, so I'm doing a series in Las Vegas. It's called Made to Shine, and it is about a Filipina maid who works in the hotel industry here, who meets a pop star from the Philippines, and they have like this little romantic journey over 6 episodes, and it talks about like class, and it talks about civic duty in other ways. Like, there's a B story with her son that gets into trouble at school. But it's a rom-com.
Okay.
Hopefully it's a feel-good rom-com. We'll see what happens with it.
You wrote it and directed it, or what?
So I'm still directing it, but I wrote it, and
Okay.
I was commissioned to write it for the Film TV network. They're a small network here in Las Vegas, and they do a lot of like news stuff, and they do a lot of music live events. And so this is their first foray into narrative. But it's a small network, so there's not a lot of a budget. So we're making things happen because community, and we want Filipino American stories out there. So that's the reason why I took it, because I'm like, yeah. So I was commissioned to write it, and this is their first foray into narrative. And I took the job because, one, I live in Las Vegas, and I like it. And also, I want more stories out in the world that center Filipino women, you know?
Yeah. So the station or the channel is here in Vegas?
It's in Vegas.
And
Yeah.
where is it like on? Is
So
it like
I think
an
it's
online
on,
channel?
It's on Roku. So
Okay.
they have Roku. They have I don't know how it works actually. I should ask them. All I know is that they have 22 million people linearly as an audience. So that's
wow.
pretty amazing. Plus they, like the Las Vegas Filipino population is pretty big. The Los Angeles Filipino population is pretty big. So they have reach over those two markets, plus some in Hawaii, and then they just made a deal with the Southern network in the Southern Philippines to do like a licensing deal.
Okay.
So that's all good stuff, So yeah, but it's because it's a smaller network. It's like, there's no budget. I'm making everything for a song and a dance, and I need help. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And you're already I saw some casting. Is that you're already casting and you're already like
Yeah,
in
so
production?
a lot of the actors I've been fortunate to work with before. I've been an acting coach since 2003, and then last year I did a feature film. So a lot of the actors know me, and they were willing to be like, hell yeah, I know it's like pennies, and I'm so sorry, but they're like, no, we want to do this. So I'm very fortunate to have people that are like down,
Oh, that's awesome. And how have you found, because you've been here like a few years, right? Mm-hmm. How have you found like difference between Vegas and LA? I'm curious about that because you're like pretty new.
I'm new here, so I don't actually know. I don't know. Like the
'Cause you
40.
just started going out. And
I just started being social. I'm an introvert, and so it's but like one-on-one is okay. But how I'm finding it feels like San Francisco in a way. Like San Francisco, when you're in the film industry in San Francisco, it's like you do it because you love it, because like it's something you have. I guess you do in LA too, but it's a little bit weird. LA is a little bit more cutthroat, Las Vegas is more community, which I like, It's more about people helping each other and wanting to like do stuff instead of like, give me credits and points and yeah, I don't know.
No, for sure. So yeah, anything else you got going on before we wrap it up? You do a lot.
I do a lot. So if there are any actors out there that need some coaching, I am an awesome coach. That is one thing that I feel very I may not be confident in anything else, but as an acting coach, I fucking rock. I just had a student that called. She just booked her first SAG film, and she's on location on the East Coast for 3 weeks, and this is her first role.
Wow.
I mean, that's amazing. I teach.
What kind of coaching do you do? Yeah.
So I teach kids and I teach through adults. My specialty is kids and sitcom, but this thing that she just booked is super drama. So, and I helped her with that audition. So I do everything. The reason why I'm known for teaching kids is because I look like this. And so a lot of older actors, unless they know my work, unless they've worked with me before, they're like, you don't know shit, right? So yeah, even though I have all these credentials and everything, it's hard for people to, and because I'm so weird, like it's hard for people to take me seriously, but I do know what I'm doing. So if there's anybody out there that needs acting coaching, call me up. My website is HollywoodActorsWorkshop.com. Also, I've been pretty good about helping people craft their stories if they want to pitch it. Like, I guess I'm good at pitching. I've gotten like things greenlit because
That's
I
awesome.
pitch.
Yeah.
So if filmmakers want to need help with like their pitch decks or with like their presentations or how to do that, I can kind of help with that. But I'm not as confident with that as with my coaching.
Okay.
and directing.
And you coach online or?
Yeah, so I coach online. I coach internationally online, so
Okay.
FaceTime or Zoom, we could do that.
All right, that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you for being on the podcast. This was
Thank
very
you.
interesting. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm very interesting.
Yeah,
I don't know
especially,
how to
I
take
mean,
that.
I could talk about the cult stuff forever, but I don't want to, like, you know, but it's super interesting.
It's very
for sure.
interesting. I know. This is why I'm doing my documentary, because people have been asking me about it so much.
You're like,
That
here,
I'm just like,
watch
yeah,
this.
here, you can talk, look at this, and then you can ask me questions later.
All right, well, thank you for being on.
Yeah, thank you, Angel.
Leave all your stuff, and, you know, people can check it out.
Cool.
See you next time. Peace.
Bye. Bye-bye.